39,255 men took their life in 2022. That number is up 2.3% from 2021. My goal with the After Dark series is to role model for men conversations that are deep, meaningful, and most importantly, hard and dark, in order for us to learn to talk and speak up because we matter. And with that being said, I want to welcome to the show today Jason Roberson, who co-hosts ATG Syndicate with me. Hi, Robo. It's nice to have you.
What's up, Jeff?
Yep. We got our good friend, Joe Adams. He owns Relentless Pursuit. I was on his podcast, The Relentless Pursuit. He's got a great story, which we're going to have in our syndicate. But today I wanted to bring him on to talk about the subject of porn. And this is, one of those conversations where you have a lot of men. This is a hot topic. This is starting to cost relationships. There's addiction issues. There's a lot to really kind of unpack in this. But how this even came up to me is Joe and I met for lunch one day to just chat about how we could collaborate more after I was on his podcast. And I brought up something, the conversation just porn randomly crossed the table and the vastness of the topics of why men are declining, because my next book I want to write about is why the men today aren't brothers like the World War II generation were. Like what happened over the last 100 years where men fractured to the point that there's no longer a brotherhood. I was chatting with him about this, and then somehow we got on board. He made this comment to me, which I'll let him open up with. And he went on this 5-minute talk about it, but was very passionate about the topic. So I figured, well, hell, let's have an After Dark. I think it's something that men need to hear about, maybe from our perspective, and kind of be able to go, from either lessons learned or people we know, or just how this conversation flows. Let's get into it. So, Joe, what's your one-line sentence that you gave to me at lunch that day, my friend?
What's up, buddy? Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, man. I'm stoked to be here. It's different being on the other side of the camera, I guess you could say. Not hosting. Yeah, that's typically what I do. So it's always a switch up. But that line was, I had a friend ask me, or I was having a conversation with a friend, and he had said that he watched porn. Just I was every so often or whatever. And I was like, dude, watching porn makes you a cuck. And this is why. So we all know the definition of a cuck. Typically a cuck is someone that lets somebody else screw their wife or whatever, their girl, and they watch. So essentially, when you're watching porn, you're just watching another dude bang a chick that you want to bang. And you're getting off to that. You're not involved at all, but you're getting off to watching another man bang a woman you want to bang. That's a cuck. Point blank, dude.
There's our episode. That was a rather quick After Dark point.
So and what's wild is several weeks later I was chatting with him, ran into him, and he's like, dude, ever since you said that, and I've went to watch porn, I remember you saying that. And then I think I'm a cuck, and then I won't watch porn. So it obviously helped him out a little bit. So yeah, man, I'm very passionate about that subject because I think it's one of the, while society generally looks at it as it's not that big of a deal because it's so widely available, I think it's one of the biggest issues of our time.
Why do you think it is one of the biggest issues of our time?
Well, to start, it's a distraction. I mean, there's so many layers to it. Okay, so I used to watch porn. I'm sure every man has at some point.
Yeah, I mean, that's why when you said that to me, I'm like, well, I'll never watch it again.
Yeah. For example, we talk about being productive all the time, big on productivity, right? So I'm sure anybody can relate. You're sitting there on porn side or whatever, and you're just watching, you're trying to get the right thing. So you're sitting there just clicking next. I want to get. Oh, let's try this out. Let's see the attached videos. Let's see that one looks good. And you start going through it. Next thing you know, a freaking 45 minutes.
You watched me at one point or something.
Yeah, right. That's weird. Yeah, that's the thing. And so you an hour's gone by, and then you're done, in seconds. And then you're like, shit, man, that was a whole hour. I could have been doing so much more. Now I got to get to this task. So you delayed yourself by getting that quick dopamine hit. that really has no benefit to you. And then on top of that, while it's distracting and keeps you from being productive, it fills your mind with just a bunch of unrealistic shit.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. And that's something I wanted to kind of bring up. Like when we were chatting about this and you made your comment about me being a cuck back in my younger days, it's like, well, hell yeah, I watched porn back in the day. But when I saw it, it was more like realistic. And what I meant by that, you were seeing it like in the 90s. So this is like 92, 93, 94.
Yeah.
And you're getting like the burnt tapes from each other and trading them at school, VHS style. Yeah. And, you're just watching, but you're not seeing the extravagant choices of fetishes and extremes that are available now, which is almost like the evolution of it. And it's gotten actually worse, because I agree with that. So where do you want to go with you after saying that? Like, because you could go, ew.
I mean, it's kind of crazy how it's evolved. I mean, I will say when I was younger, usually it was like typically you get a hands on like a Playboy. Someone's dad had a Playboy, and it was just like boobs. I remember it's a funny story. My mom, she was going through my room or something, or she was about to. And I guess at some point I had Googled like boobs and butts, and I just printed off a bunch of pictures from Google, like the website, the images, Yahoo
These
Images or something.
Pictures.
Yeah, so I had like a stack of pictures, just like a chick showing their boobs, and like I guess I tried to flush them down the toilet, and they just found like this wet stack of papers, like you could see. So I got busted, and but I will say, man, I remember the first magazine I saw, like I forget who it was. But this kid had this magazine. It was pretty gnarly stuff. It was like, it wasn't Playboy. It was next level. I was pretty young. And then my parents found like a cassette tape my friend let me borrow. It was like gangbangs and something like that. My mom like freaked out. She's like, Joe, this is not realistic. You know what I'm saying? But it's not though, man. But like those seeds are planted for men. They're planted at a very young age. And now like, more often than not, the exposure for younger guys is the extreme shit right off the bat. Like they're not just getting introduced to like Playboy, like they're somehow getting access to Pornhub or whatever and able to look at whatever's on there, which is a wide variety of things.
Yeah. So one of I have my son, he's 17, and last summer he had showed my youngest son some porn. And I busted it out of Keegan because he's like, oh, he was hurting her, making her scream. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you showing him? And I've made him go over it with me. And I was like sitting there for a moment, and I was kind of like, holy fuck. Like when he was showing me like the tags, what you could sort through, I was like, I know what like some of them were. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I could only imagine by what the first word was combined with the second word.
Oh, dude.
Could be. And it's this extreme thing. And I agree with you, because I told him, like, bro, you're never, ever going to find a girl who, for anyone listening, part one by say, who's going to go ass to mouth and just love it all day long.
Yeah. And you right off the bat, it's going to be,
it's a gross ass thing to say, but I mean, like, that's what's out there in those videos and shit like that. Yeah. And that's a distorted look at sex for anyone who's, especially you're 14 years old. Like, and that's why I wonder, like, what would my sexual life have been like if I had been 14, and started seeing this stuff 13, 14 years old, and then started having sex? I probably would have been horrible, and no one would have ever want to have sex with me.
It's the progression that we take across everything, which is, think about if you're playing golf, you want to you start on a small course, you work your way to harder, bigger courses. It's the same thing with books. You start with basic books, you work your way up. Porn is the same way. You start with the basic stuff, you work your way up. I don't see any way where, your son, not just your son, any kid watches the extreme things and they can relate on a normal level to a woman. It's become an object. It's become a piece of fulfillment. How are they going to have a relationship when they grow up?
Yeah. Damn, that's a good point. You could hit it because I can always see your face turning the wheels.
Well, that too, man. And they also, you got to think about the girls that end up being porn stars, right? I was watching some documentary on porn, and there was this girl getting tied up with like ropes, doing some bondage shit. And then she just started freaking out, crying and screaming. And they were like she was still on camera, and she was like, oh my God, like, it reminds me of like my ex and how he just used to berate me and like all this stuff. And like, she just started having fucking PTSD from a past relationship. And like, it shows you that like a lot of the women that they drag into the industry as well are some fucking broken people, man, that have been through some pretty gnarly stuff, and they never worked on it or confronted it. So they go down this path that just sucks them in because it's easy money, and like, I don't know, they're already beat down and they already don't really have any values at that point if they're willing to go to that length. So, you're also, the industry like preys on these just like destroyed individuals more often than not. Like I watched that documentary, and that was what I gathered. And it's almost like, damn, you also, if you're watching it, you feel bad. You're like, what has this girl been through? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And, and I'm one, industries are going to exist regardless, and I understand that. And it's just more like, how do you kind of regulate it? How do you kind of look at it to be able to prevent the kids, especially the young men, from seeing it? Once you're past 18, it's a different story of a conversation, because if you're 18, I'm like, well, you're choosing not to be a non-productive adult.
Yeah.
You're choosing to do these things. When you're a kid, like Robo just pointed out, like my oldest, he didn't know what the fuck that was he was looking at. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting there like, only if you've ever had sex would you know if that's a realistic thing or not. But it's literally objects. And social media has driven a lot of that objectivity at its baseline, I think, where it's become everything's over-sexualized. Like even me in the bodybuilding world, the photos that get the most likes and everything like that is usually the ones where it's more model-esque and things like that. So do you think that that's... Because you said something earlier, and it was about the dopamine. And my first thought was, well, we as a society are only about getting high off of what we see next.
Yeah.
So.
And when you can get those things from actual experiences in life too. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you're constantly getting that dopamine hit. It's so easy to do that when, if you're able to do that, then you're less likely to go after true raw experience in life. Experience in what life's actually
it's a
about.
massive demotivator.
Yeah, massive demotivator. I mean, I get dopamine hits from like, I don't know, different feats in the gym that I thought I couldn't do, or stuff like that. I think there's a lot of different things in life that actually give me that high, that are actually worthwhile and actually going to have an impact on me as an individual in a positive way rather than a negative way.
If you didn't earn it, I assume it means less to you. Your body just becomes addicted. It's too easy. It's like binging a TV show. Only in this case, you're binging porn.
Yeah. I mean, and it's hard to avoid though. Like you said, like everything's sexualized. Music, most of the movies and TV shows out there. It was like Lydia and I were watching one show, and it was just like, it was pretty good, the idea of it, but it's like constant like adultery. And just like, this like wife's cheating with this dude on her husband. The husband's a good guy. They make the husband look like a dumbass for some reason, but I could tell he's a good guy in the show, right? And we were just like, let's just stop watching this. Like they made it had so much potential, but like they made it suck because they're constantly flooding it with that shit.
All right, do you guys want the worst negative feedback we'll ever get on the show? That's the plot of Notebook, right? It was some
Never
sexualized...
saw it. I've never seen the Notebook.
It's some sexualized relationship from the past that you have to run back to and give up the perfectly amazing guy that you're with now. And every girl talks about how romantic and amazing that is. That is awful. Like, this guy was a great guy. At least break up with him before you run off and cheat with the new guy. Yeah. And I'm not sure if I'm getting the plot entirely right, but I think I'm like 98% sure.
Fair.
I'm going to go home and watch it.
Yeah.
I'm not.
No. There's a lot of time.
Think about all the guys you know in adulthood, everyone you've interacted with, everyone you're close to. Is there anyone that you admire, that you look up to, that watches porn regularly, and that even,
would
says
tell
they
the
watch
truth,
it?
though? Like, I mean, I could be honest, like, throughout my time, probably until, like, maybe the last few years, I would look at shit, but it wasn't, like, necessarily, like, oh, my God, that consumes my day. It was more or less, like, I took too much testosterone and Anadrol, and I need to just get this out, or my whole day is fucked. So it was from that basis, but no, you're spot on. I don't know, but I don't know if those guys would come out and be like, like, with Tony Robbins, Unlimited Power, be like, I unlimited jerk off. Like, would he, like... talk like that. I don't even know if you get it being said.
You said something that I want to stop and focus on for a second.
Sure.
And it's that, would they admit it? If you're doing something amazing, if you go out and crush it at the gym and you hit a new PR, you're probably going to post about it. If you run a marathon and get amazing time, you're going to post about it. If you watch porn for 2 hours, are you going to post about it? No, because no one thinks that's good and something to brag about. Yet people will still do it more often than they'll do any of those other activities for that dopamine hit.
I think it's one of those things, if you watch it, it's just highly unrealistic the more it's gotten. Like, as a kid, it was kind of like, oh, okay, because with all my surgeries, I was always watching like Lifetime TV with my mom and stuff. Yeah. So I was always exposed to like those hot, passionate, like softcore things, like Silk Stockings, these crazy shows. Young and the Restless, Victor and Eric's.
Those are two very different shows.
I know, but the point is, you're seeing like you're seeing this passion of it. So early on, the porns I saw were more like passionate. You didn't see someone getting the shit smacked out of them. Call me daddy and all this other stuff and everything else that became this high end extreme. It was more realistic. It was more attainable.
There's one thing that's popular, like the stepsister thing. Like,
what the fuck is that? No.
There's like such a big emphasis on stepsisters and stepmoms, like family like porn, dude.
Well, it's once you figure out a plot that works, stick with it, because the writers aren't top notch in that industry, maybe.
Well, if you think about it, though, so we could go down this route a little bit with it. Porn used to be production. And, it used to be where the girls got paid a high-end amount of money.
You're such a cinephile, Jeff.
I'm just being honest. But they used to do the plots, like, the pizza delivery, and then slowly...
the plots.
But then slowly, it just kind of got down to just be like, hey, this is what the fuck we're doing, so let's just get it on, right?
Yeah.
And it dwindled away because technology improved so much you can actually just do it on your phone now. Mm-hmm. And upload it. So it lowered the barrier to entry. And I make this argument about the supplement industry. Before Instagram and things like that, bodybuilders had a lot of big contracts and monies. And then after Instagram, it was like, oh, I'll do it for a few pre-workouts and some protein and get into a whole new demographic. And it's almost like porn has done that. Like, it completely shattered and opened up the door because of the cell phone and just how much tech has advanced that you could literally show any fucking fetish that you want to show. Like, I'm into being pissed on and stuff like that. And my whole thing comes back to, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on this collectively. How do we even look at regulating this in the sense of like blocking it to the kids, or do we tackle the topic of just men at this time? Because it's two different conversations, I feel. So I want to know where we want to kind of go and put our focus at this point.
So I want to say something on one thing that you said earlier. It was like, would those guys tell you? And I do just got to say, like, I think there's a certain type of energy and aura that men that aren't addicted to those things put off. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like I can be around someone and interact with them and be like, yeah, dude, they're probably not addicted to porn. Does that make sense?
I don't know, man. I've trained a few girls who've told me like I told them we were talking about this topic because they always pick my brain about like just chat with me in the gym, and like, I've lost relationship to porn.
I mean,
it's
we
very
had a
significant.
lady on the podcast. Her ex-husband was like worked in the church, and he was, everybody looked up to him, but he was a preacher or something, and he was addicted to porn, and so it's like, and people had no clue. But as far as you were talking about regulating things and whatnot. I mean, if I had it my way, I'd be like, all right, like I was a leader. I'd be like, no porn, like that's degenerate.
No one's fucking voting for you now.
Right. But I also I'm huge against like censorship, period.
See, that's where I stand.
So like, that's where I'm like, dude, I don't believe in censorship. Like let people make their choices. Right. Yeah. But, so I think what I truly believe is just like collectively, helping men improve and become stronger and willing to like shut that shit down on their own rather than censoring it. As much as I want to say, just cut it out, I wish everybody would just wake up and be like, this is fucking bad. And that's my hopes, but, I don't see it going that way anytime soon. So I think, speaking to men and bringing men together and just making them a little bit more powerful and willing to stand up against it. And, you know, like you had that talk with your son, like a kid that age, they're going to see shit like that. But I think it comes down to the father and his place and how you speak to him about it. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of dads that are like, just a kid watching porn, but actually seeing the bigger issue in it and teaching them that's not the way, that's not the direction.
Yeah, it's going to wreck you. It's going to ruin you. You're not going to find a woman that's going to be down for what you're witnessing and all the time at the grass at your fingertips. Life don't work that way.
Hey, son, seeing me and your mom's relationship, it's not built off of that shit.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? But it comes down to so many other things, like how's your relationship with your wife? What are you showing your kids? You know, and drawing that connection. Be like, do you want a relationship like this with someone one day? Well, then this is going to keep you from that, and you're going to run into chaos.
100%.
I'm similar to Joe on the censorship aspect. I hate that idea.
Yeah.
But if you look, I think it was Montana recently passed a law where you have to be over 18 to view porn. And so a lot of sites got banned there. I think that just went into effect at the change of the year. And there's one other state who might have done it as well. We're seeing the beginning stages. If you think about how we treat children in society across the board, kids make stupid decisions. Parents are there to help them out. Sometimes the parents aren't great. Society steps in. We all help them out. I think there's a space for regulation under 18. I don't think you should censor it to adults, but I think you have to reel that in because they don't know the damage they're doing to themselves. I mean, I think that's why we have record rates of erectile dysfunction among 20 and 30-year-olds. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with that dopamine hit. Nothing can get them to that level of arousal they can get, online. Nothing in person even lives up to it. We got to protect future societies from what's going on right now.
That is fascinating that you bring up the erectile dysfunction. What's your take on that? Are you saying a lot of it is porn, or are you going to go like collectively there's other things too?
I mean, I think it's the food, the toxins, all that crap, the low T. Yeah. That's absolutely one. I think the porn is another one. You get someone addicted to porn, they're not going to be able to do what you want them to in the bedroom. Like, sorry, ladies, if you're with a guy addicted to porn, he's just not going to be able to perform.
That's the unfortunate thing. Like the girls who've like told me that, been like, that's what it is. They know they can't compete with that and they won't compete with that. It's actually they make the choice that they won't, and that's actually and I don't dog anyone who does porn industry. It's probably like I agree with like Joe says. I look at it more like, I hope you know what you're really doing, and I hope you're not as broken as you might appear, and I really hope for you've got a plan, because I hope that for anybody, you don't want to witness the downfall, but odds are it's not a good landing and a good ending.
No, not at all. And there was something you were saying too about like regulating it, like the 18 over whatnot. And I had this conversation with somebody. I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And he was like, yeah, but then it goes down the state level, the city level. Then someone's like, oh, we want to regulate this thing. And it turns into like a trickle effect too. So there's like the dangers of that too, of people trying to regulate more and more and more. If we allow that to happen, right? Well, then what are they regulating next? And then it's going to be, it can get silly fast. You just never freaking know.
No,
that's the thing.
It's every industry. We see it get out of control across the board. So you're right. It's a huge risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they require a credit card or like you have to ID verify, submit a license, something like that in order to get past it. I think it's one of the Carolinas is the other one, but don't quote me on that. Montana for sure. That was on that.
Yeah, that's where you get the slippery slope with all the laws, right? Like it's like you said, you do one, you could get another. But here's my thoughts, and then I want to kind of just start focusing on the guys, because I think the children one, like the kid one, we are pretty much, most men, if you're a real man, could agree that they should not, kids under the age of 18 should not be fucking accessing this shit. If you believe otherwise, that's nice. I don't want to talk to you. But it's almost like there's like an attack on kids today. You have the bullying stuff, because like I was thinking about that, because in my book, I was bullied only at school. So the torment I dealt with was in my own head in my own time, not what I could be hit with on all these different websites, all these different social medias, the text messages, and so forth. I think at some point we have to look at society with the advancement of technology. There has to come some uncomfortable regulations that just make common sense in the sake of protecting kids to a degree that they need to be protected. And it's one of those, hey, you want to be 18 and you want to go chop your dick off or do this or that, or the other thing, totally cool with me. I don't give a fuck. You want to go serve our country and die for the flag? 100% support you. Yeah. Be 18.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of sit on the porn thing. Be 18. You can watch what you want, do what you want. You're just going to have loser habits probably.
No, I agree, man. Because at the end of the day, the kids are in that developmental stage. So they're taking in things at a much higher rate. And it's rearranging and reprogramming their mind at such a fast rate compared to people that are over 18 and, for the most part, know what the hell they're doing. But I've said this a few times, and that's one big reason for my pursuit with in the psychology field is that I think the biggest war of our time is psychological. Like it's not, dude, no one's going to freaking, chances are you're not going to be at your house and you're going to get raided by some other tribe. That doesn't happen anymore. Back in the day, it was physical war. It was like all the comforts we have now, they didn't have back then. So they were worried about someone trying to take their crops and this and that. It was stressful, but it was very basic, if that makes sense. It was survival. You knew how to fight. You knew how to, feed your family. You knew how to do this, that, and the other. But now there's no control over what's much greater, dude. It's all psychological when it comes to porn, social media, all these things. So it's really seeding into the mind at such a fast rate. And I think my theory is these companies got some high level psychologists on their shit. And they're like, hey, let's, how can we brainwash people in essence, right? And so I think there's a war there that we got to kind of battle against, man. It's all a war on the mind.
I don't know if it's even brainwash. I mean, advertisers want you addicted. That's what they want. That's how they make their money.
Make it clear.
Yeah. So it's just straight. How do we get these people addicted to doing this over and over? That's why Netflix is designed the way it is. That's why entertainment, football, basketball, all of it's designed to keep your eyes on it.
Yep.
Porn's no different.
Go and check out relentlesspursuitlifestyle.com. Support the brand. We sell our apparel through there. We got training through there. You can access all of our other stuff through there. Subscribe that's where our content will be coming through heavily. Can't find us on Instagram, canceled. Also, subscribe to us on the Relentless Pursuit. Fuck, man, I always fuck up with my ad reads. Subscribe to the Relentless Pursuit podcast on YouTube, Spotify. Help us grow that. Jeff's podcast is amazing. We had him on as a guest to tell his whole story, and that's what we do is we have people share their journey. So definitely check out that, and also check out our Patreon for some more exclusive content at patreon.com/The Relentless Pursuit Podcast. Thank you.
Everyone, as you all know, New Ethics Formulations sponsors me, nevethics.com. They're in the show notes. I love Estracort. I take testosterone replacement therapy. I'm a pro steroid guy. I'm not going to lie. This is a natural way to help control your estrogen levels when you're taking around 250 mgs of testosterone. And it does not impact your cholesterol values in a bad way, which is why I really like it. Discount code is Relentless10. As always, I just ask if you're using a product similar. If the product interests you, try it for a month. Give our sponsors a fair shake. If you guys are interested in $25 off your male labs, if you're a male out there wanting to get some blood work, see what's going on underneath your hood, brittletounbreakable.com. You can also pre-order my book that's releasing in April. But if you go up underneath sponsors, AVH, fill out the form. I'll put you in contact clinic, $25 off your blood work. Just have your T levels checked, guys. It's an interesting phenomenon. I could say how much low T is really out there.
One thing that I talk to Margaret about all the time is that with shows that are time period based high school, right? So these are children, and there's 28-year-olds playing 16-year-olds, and a lot of the storylines are about sexual topics.
That's a good point because, I'm not gonna lie, I'm watching Vampire Diaries. It's that's my wind down show.
All right, so are we recording?
Yeah, I love it.
All right, so you guys were just talking about something about over sexualization. We're gonna go there because Joe's watching Vampire Diaries. I have to know more. But I wanted to say that if you actually Google, it's U.S. patent. I can't remember. It's 6 something. About it was created in I think 2000. Google about the TVs and radio frequencies being able to control the nervous system. Mm-hmm. So I'm not too far beyond removed by what you guys saying. There's a massive attack on people to be controlled.
Yeah.
People just want to be in a soft lullaby all the time. Robo sent me an article today about people skipping out on the gym because of Ozempic, and they're literally yeah, I can miss workouts, my weight don't change, and it's oh. Oh, I can't wait to be on the other side in 5 years. I'm going to be a rich man as a health coach. Not much I know. Fixing all that. But you guys were just talking about the over-sexualization. And you guys were talking, Logan, our producer, Cinema 83, was talking about him and his girlfriend, right? Margaret, they were talking about the over-sexualization, like picking like a 28-year-old actor to play like a 15-year-old kid about adult topics. And you wanted to jump in that because you were like, I'm not lying, but I watched The Vampire Diaries. I was like, oh, we got to get into this. So let's go ahead and do it.
So my wife and I, she was like, because I like vampire stuff, werewolf stuff, any kind of like
badass shit,
any
man.
kind of old lore. Like I love shit like that, you know.
Did you like Vampire the Masquerade?
I haven't watched that.
No, it's like old role playing stuff. Sorry, my dungeon.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, I mean, I love anything related to that.
Don't use role playing in this episode. Out of context.
Calm down. He's getting stimulated. The dopamine. But so any kind of like lore, like I'm big into like fantasy and stuff like that. You know, huge Tolkien fan, all that. And Lydia was like, "Oh, you like Vampire Diaries? I promise." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a chick show." You know, you just listen to the title, Vampire Diaries. And then I started watching it, and I think we were almost on like season 7. So, because like we get home, you know, we both like bust our ass every day, and I'll start my day at 4, and that's just kind of like our wind down thing. And some nights we don't watch it, but I've really gotten into it, and it's actually pretty badass. And but I always catch myself like recognizing it. Like the first season, they're like 16 years old, right? They're in high school, and then she's like starts dating this vampire. Well, he's like 150 years old. So I'm like, okay, but he stays his age. He turned, so he stays like. Technically, he stays 17. My bad.
No, he
stays 17 for like forever, right? He's immortal.
So then it becomes
but like
inversed.
Still, he's like 150. I was like, babe, he's like really old. She's like underage chick. She's like, no, he stays 17. I'm like, yeah, but he's still 150 years old. I was like, he's like done all this shit, right?
Kentucky vampire.
Right. She's actually his cousin.
Yeah.
No, but anyway, so she's 16, and then there's like these passionate make out scenes, and like they don't show like it's 2010, so it's not as intimate
risque.
as it is now. But no, yeah, it's not as risque. But they have these sex scenes, and I'm just keep thinking, I'm like, there's 150-year-old dudes having sex with a 16-year-old right here, and they romanticize it like crazy, and I'm like, I keep replaying that in my head. Now they're in college, so I guess it's better, right? Yeah. But so 150, 21, but anyways, so it's just a weird concept to think about. But I was reflecting on it, and there's like a lot of TV shows and movies like that. It's like kids in high school, because there's a lot of things based on like high school students. And there's a lot of sex and stuff happening, and it's like, wait, they're like basically acting this out. It's wild to me.
We don't even realize. I mean, I feel like everything's sexualized anymore. We're so numb to it. I mean, every time you open Instagram or Facebook, every time you turn on the TV, it's something sexualized. So it's no wonder that you have problems relating to your wife or a woman in some sort of positive way, because they're just a sexual object. I mean, everywhere else in the world.
Exactly, man. Yeah. That's exactly how it is. Even like dancing, just like dancing used to be really cool. I was like, man, I wish I knew how to do like the waltz and shit. It was classic. It was classy. It looked good. Even it was a little intimate, but it wasn't super sexual. Like, people are like, you don't dance? And I'm like, nah, dude, don't do all that shit. Like in modern times, how it's changed, right? But everything is evolved in this hyper-sexualized way.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know, Jeff, I'm interested to get your take with your sons, but I don't necessarily see, our age group, 30, 40-year-olds, getting any better in the way we relate to the world and the way we view our relationships. In fact, I feel like we're breaking down more often. We're staying single longer. Do you see that as a trend with them into adulthood? Or is it too soon to tell, I guess, is maybe a better question.
So, I think overall you're going to see them be more guarded. It's almost like they almost kind of like have a fuck everybody attitude, like a lot of the kids today, to a degree. Just everybody's out to get them. And I was like that. I tried to tell them, I was like, man, when I was growing up, like Rage Against the Machine was cool till Rage Against the Machine wasn't cool suddenly. But it was like all anti-establishment. I've always stood by that. Like I'm an anarchist at heart to a degree about just fucking throw the establishment over and just kind of like restart it and always better progress. I honestly think they might be better if they keep relationships, meaning if they get together, they're going to be more inclined to stick together in a relationship. And I think for them to do it is going to be very, very hard. And I also think the schools are purposely making the kids stupider and dumbing them down and delaying them. Like it's almost like with our kids, they're a little behind where I felt like I was at 16. And I think it's because they have more distractions. Everything's a little bit more comfortable. Everything's a little bit easier. You know, shit, they don't even want to read a book. They'd rather just look at why they got it on the computer and so forth. I think that you're seeing a lot of it. There's, we talked about the traditional role models before we went live. There is some of that because today's pressure, like I can't be home all the time to watch what the kids are doing, and nor can my wife. We have to work a lot. So you're kind of trusting your kids to make the best decisions with technology and all these things. And then now you have the pressure of like raising a daughter. It's like, well, hey, you're going to have to figure out how to work full time. If you want to have a kid, this is how you have to manage this in. These are the values and traits you're looking for in a guy. And it becomes vastly overwhelming. And I say all that because I don't know where the tech really evolves with them.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the kids today almost want to be off social media. And they're almost kind of finding different things. Like Keegan, Lena, them, they don't give a shit about it. Like they just would rather not be involved. So maybe it goes backwards.
So my follow-up is to Joe. Knowing that these kids are starting to revolt and go backwards, is that what guys our age have to do to get away from it, or how do they overcome the addiction?
So I
Stop being cucks.
yeah, stop being cucks. Plain and simple. No.
T-shirt we're gonna make for you, Joe.
I think a big thing is brotherhood and tribalism, and I bring up like my crew, the Hari, right? My brothers and I. And we get together. We got together last weekend. We did ritual. We put our prospect through hell. All this stuff. I owed them in, but like, there's more to it. You see this resurgence of. I mean, even on TikTok and stuff, you see this traditional. There's like a traditional woman movement. Like they're dressed all traditional and they're wearing making like sourdough bread, and like they're starting to get a big uptick. Like people are like, oh man, and people that are doing stuff like taking care of their land and planting gardens and teaching other people how to plant gardens. So you're starting to see more and more of this theme where people are going back into time because they just want like the simpler lifestyles, and they're sharing that with other people. And there's a saying my brothers and I say, we say men against time, because we believe in the old ways and the old values. And so when we get together, like we talk about, I mean, we screw off because we don't see each other as much as we'd like to, and we raise hell. But like, essentially, we're in the woods. We're beating each other up. We're boxing. We're doing jujitsu.
Yeah, you do bare knuckle fighting.
Yeah. So do some bare knuckle fighting. And it's a good time, man. But but
never bare knuckle fighting you in our brotherhood group.
Same.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
and just bring y'all closer. I promise you.
I have
close
better
enough.
bones. It's kind of an advantage,
No,
right?
we're beautiful enough. We don't need to do that. But anyway.
I told my wife, I said, if I ever get this tooth knocked out, I'm getting a gold tooth. I want a gold tooth. And she's like, you better wear a mouthpiece. Anyways, but that's a totally different subject. But and that's the whole thing, though. We talk about that all the time, man. Just we do what we do because we believe in it, and we believe in our ancestral ways and whatnot. But we also believe in keeping old traditions alive. In a world that's like so against that, with concrete buildings everywhere and all that stuff. Like, we get away in nature and we do everything we can to keep old traditions alive, because we truly believe that eventually it'll recycle, and this cycle will happen to where that is the way. Does that make sense? And you're starting to see more. You see these camps and stuff advertised all the time, like brotherhood camps, and they're just getting all these men, they buy a ticket and they get out there and they box with gloves, and they're carrying stuff and they're cooking and they're doing shit like that. And I'm like, man, like that's my life pretty much. I do that all the time. But you're starting to see an uprising in that, and I think that's kind of a pretty special focus, because I think that's essentially what it's going to come down to, is like just the older way of things is going to be what eventually takes over. I mean, it could take a long time, but I think that's the new golden age, right? So, because people are starting to get really fed up with just how the world is, and all this mass overstimulation. And I think it's good to see some things all this stuff brought to light, you know. People see how sick it is at the top.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I do like the brotherhood talk that you brought up. And every brotherhood's got their own unique thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like we've chatted before about MCs and just military. We have a friend who was in the military. So brotherhood's represented in a lot of different ways. Yeah. We have a local brotherhood chapter. We actually meet about every quarter, and we go off, do stuff and things like that. We're more the small business entrepreneurs, kind of link us together, kind of through the gym and things like that. But I do say that is something that has really enhanced my life as I've gotten older, because I'm around a group of gentlemen that are playing at a higher level, a level that I want to play at. And therefore it's like, well, I mean, in order to play at a high level and be competitive, because it's friendly competition about all of us wanting to succeed and grow together. Yeah. I can't be spending my time dwindling it down with dumb shit that I can't do. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you go back to this, you said something early about productivity. I think men who are doing this kind of shit and wasting away relationships at times are just men who are just too big of pussies to get fucking engaged in life and go try to kick ass back. And I think there are people who've just sat down, and if that's the case, pick your fucking self back up. Yeah. Like, why aren't you gotta doing that?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think, like you said, you have your brotherhood. I think more men need brotherhood.
I agree. I think more men just don't talk. We have some friends who, not all of us pierce the veil with each other. You know what I mean? Like, and that's hard to do because some guys just think are like, here, you can't say anything. Like, you know, and I mean, he knows my darkest shit. He's made fun of me for so many dumb decisions. But that's what it is, right? You know, someone to hold you accountable and things like that. I almost think men fear that. Men rather talk shit to each other and demean each other and push each other down and all this other shit rather than like, hey, don't do that, or hey, do this, or hey, let me help you here.
Yeah, I don't even associate with men like that, you know, that just do that. I think holding each other to a standard, I mean, I'm sure y'all do. Like my brother, part of our oath is, you know, in there, like being an artist and like creating art in whatever way, being the apex predator, so training martial arts, being an explorer, going out and experiencing the world. Like, we take all this stuff very seriously, and we're like, you know, we're super against porn and stuff like that. Like we make sure like, hey, that's a non-negotiable. You're not doing that shit, because that affects us all energetically, right? Like, because we have this oath, we understand that whatever you're doing in your life directly affects your brother, right? Essentially, because it's all tied together and it's all the weird. So I think that's a massive aspect, but I think a lot of men too. And I even had a female say this to me because she really appreciated the way I spoke about my wife. You know, like when I make a post, it's not passive aggressive. I'm not trying to be humorous. Like, it's really passionate and loving. And she could see that through that. And she's like, you know, a lot of women shut men down. So there's also the fact too that men aren't willing to go out and get brothers and talk about deeper things because they've completely changed themselves for somebody else. Men aren't men anymore. They don't stay true to who they are.
I agree.
They get with somebody, and somebody, for some reason, wants to change that person and mold them into something else. And I've almost run into it a couple times in the past, but I said, screw this. And
you got told you were difficult to deal with, right? Because I've been told that a few
you're
times.
too much.
Yeah, too much.
Yeah,
too difficult to deal with. Yeah,
you know, all these traits about me that, like, you know, who I am now that were like issues, but like my wife loves every bit of it about me.
Same, I relate.
You know, and so you find that, and you're like, hell yeah, and but because of that, men lose themselves and they lose that masculine side of them, so they don't even know what's what anymore.
Yeah, I almost wonder if porn's increased because men are just like, fuck it, I don't want to deal with someone thinking like I can hold my. I remember one time we were on this date with this girl, and I opened the door. She's like, I can get my own door. And I was like, oh, fuck. All right. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm definitely going to let her know I showed up all in red in 2020 and voted for Trump. And I fucking did. And it only went beyond one. But and that was just because he said he was going to open up the businesses, and that was that. But do you guys think that maybe that's a little bit of it? Because if men are already feeling demeaned, because that's an honest thing, like, the reason this podcast, this idea came to me is we did a podcast long ago on a different show and other stuff we had over time, people saying men don't really kind of like display any talks of openness whatsoever.
No.
And therefore there's no like real need to get into it.
You just disproved a little bit of your own question.
Damn it.
And you were asking, do you think it has something to do with almost the way women are interacting with men? But then you flipped it at the end and you basically said men weren't shown this behavior. This is how men are now, to close down, to not open up.
Yeah.
Which really points back to the generations before that, the folks we looked up to. It was that symbol of quiet power, never open up, never talk about anything, never address a big issue.
So here's the deal. So I was
Did
recently.
John Wayne talk about
me
his
and you have
feelings?
been like the most recently
Clint
single.
Eastwood. Yeah.
Me and you were like recently on this single like years ago. So when we were on those dating apps, you had like, if you voted this, if you're this, like it was a whole list of like fuck yous.
Yeah.
And it was like, why the fuck do I want to even talk to you? And here's what I'm saying. If you scroll and you see that over and over and over, and then you're already starting at with a woman a negative spot. Like the guy, so many men's fuck me over, fuck you, I'm not gonna give you a shot. Men are just like, screw this, I'll just jerk off or get an escort or whatever in between that they could possibly do. But it's the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Like, why keep going if you're gonna get hammered in the fucking face? And that's my whole deal. In past situations, I was difficult. It was always hell and stuff like that. And it's like, you just get fucking tired of dealing with that shit.
Yeah, you do, man.
And I wonder if it's just easier for some of these guys to maybe like rub one out and then be on Tinder.
Well, yeah, because then they have kids and they're like, then they have some children of these women that they're already miserable with, and then they're like, "Well, I just do it for the kids." It's like, damn, man. And then a lot of these guys just feel like they're extremely trapped, and so they just like water themselves down to such a degree for the kids. But they're miserable. They're the guys that go to the bar and they watch the game and they're like, "Oh, the ball and chain. You gave me permission to come out here." Like, I'll be honest, my wife doesn't give me permission for anything. She trusts me to make my own decision. I say, "Hey, this is my next plan of attack," or "This is what I'm going to do." She knows I'm not like a piece of crap that's going to take advantage of it. She's like, "All right." Like I don't ask for permission essentially. Like obviously if there's big decisions that need to be made between us, we talk about it, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, you bring up a good point that like men almost just are now so lazy and broken down that porn's easier to just be like told what to do, easier to be told just to go forward.
And they're docile.
Docile.
Yeah, and it's frowned upon. Like you talked about, like talking about vulnerability and feelings. I think I feel like I'm in an interesting spot in my generation because like past men didn't talk about their shit.
Yeah.
But then you see the implications of that. You see like what happens, they just go crazy. They snap or whatever happens, right? Or they get a divorce at like 60 because they're like, fuck, I was miserable my whole life, But now future generations, they just like cry about everything. That's being honest, right? They're just like, oh my God, I can't handle it. It's too much. I am anxiety. You're like, no, that's not your identity. But like, I feel like there's like this bridge for some reason. Like I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like, okay, me personally, I'm able to attack my feelings. I like if my wife and I'm feeling a certain way about stuff or I'm overwhelmed, I'm able to discuss that and talk about it, express those things, but I'm not all crybaby about it. I'm still about action in my life and I'm still moving forward no matter what. But you got to be able to have both ends of the spectrum. And I think that is like a true man, being able to, what was that book? We were just talking about it. The Obstacle is the Way. By
Ryan Holiday.
Yes. And he talks.
He reads all the time. That's how we started our little friendship, our bromance over books.
Yeah. And he talks about, God, there's one line he talks about where he says something along the lines of, it's okay to let it out. Essentially masculinity isn't just holding it all in, but let it out and move forward. Have a game plan and correct yourself and move forward from that situation. So I think there's, I don't know. Anyways, I think it's just kind of fascinating because I reflect on that a lot. Like looking at the past and like looking at men and they're just like, they're pissed off and they don't have uncomfortable conversations. But like, I love uncomfortable conversations. I love talking about deep shit.
I think that's part of the reason men can't have conversations because of our generation parents don't talk God, money, politics, anything. That's why you see no one being able to talk about anything anymore. And it brought about silence.
Yeah.
As a consequence.
Exactly. So
let's talk about, you mentioned, let it out, but then take corrective action. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to bring us full circle. What are the corrective actions if you're addicted to porn, but you don't have that tribe, you don't have those guys to lean on, maybe you're married, who knows, But what steps do you need to start taking immediately to get out of that?
I'll give you chop it off. So there's two things to do. One, I think what we did was create our brotherhood. Like,
Well, that's long term. Let's talk immediate. What's going to make the impact in the next 1, 2, 3 days, first week?
Well, I think if you're a man, you have to ask yourself, are you a winner or are you a loser? And I think if you basically, like the Andy Frisella thing, I'm a big fan of, circle a W and L, you have 5 habits. Make not watch porn one of those habits, and you circle a W and L every day. And if you keep circling L's, you're going to have to identify as a loser. If you identify as a loser, well, that's your path until you take corrective action, and it isn't going to change. The only corrective action and path that's going to change, or the only path that's going to change it, is the corrective action through circling W's at that point. I really think that's, I don't know, man. From where I do bodybuilding, you know me. I give the advice. Like when people go, "Oh, I'll start Monday," I'm like, "Fuck you! Start the next meal." Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Go. You skip the workout. Okay, go tonight. You know what I mean? Comes a time where you have to make a stand with yourself, and the days you make the stand with yourself, and the days you don't want to, you're actually going to get some pride out of it, and that's when you build it. The first 3 days are easy, but these guys with the porn stuff, I dare say it's a matter of like that, and then probably distracting himself with something else. I don't know, like fucking finding a girl, or if you're gay and into porn, which is cool too, find your another man, you know, find someone, that would be my thoughts. But what are yours actually?
So I think of it as it's an addiction like anything else. And what helps stop the addiction? Well, you remove the ability to actually indulge. So if you're addicted to drugs, you stay the hell away from drugs. You go out in the woods, you camp, something like that.
Got my heart.
Yeah. If you're addicted to porn, however you watch it, if that's your computer, you go and you hand your computer to someone else and say, hey, you keep track of this. You put some blocker on there. If it's your phone, you have to just be without your phone. Get a damn flip phone. Whatever it takes, you just deny yourself the ability to even give in. After a while, you stop thinking about it. I've never been truly addicted to something to the level where I understand that. And so that's where I'm very curious, what other people think, or what have they seen someone who's addicted to drugs, how have they pulled themselves out of it?
Be able to comment below if you guys are watching this video, because I'd be curious, because it might be something for follow-up Q&A we could do down the road if other people have hacks. But what do you say that? That's actually a good one. The flip phone, burner, I would give anything. When I retire, you fuckers are going to get yes or no from me. You're going to have to pick up the phone and call me if you want to get a hold of me.
Carrier pigeon.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I swear to God.
I'll start training them now.
Between just, you know how it is, that the cell phone wears you down, man. Text message. I'm just like, call me, get over with it 2 minutes rather than text me 80 times.
I want to hear Joe's thoughts first, but I'll tell you a funny story about cell phone and COVID and relationships once he talks.
Well,
don't be a cuck.
Put a piece of paper above your computer and says, "Don't." I'm watching you, cuck.
That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah. I don't know.
Look,
write it on your freaking mirror.
Look, I'm fucking sorry, but that's the one thing in porn I don't give a fuck. I'll make my stand openly. I don't fucking get that. Having some guy watch you beat the brakes off your fucking girl, like what
wild.
the fuck?
Yeah,
that's the one I don't get. Like,
I don't understand
so
where.
So when you say it, I'm immediately like, damn, you ruined even just any enjoyment. Maybe at 57, I want to have.
Exactly.
I turned 58. Anyway, go ahead.
No, but I think it's a compilation of things. To me, I think purpose is a huge part.
So like writing a purpose, redefining it.
Yeah, like thinking about your purpose and recognizing, okay, what keeps me from that purpose? What keeps me from reaching a higher level? Like I'm very spiritual, right? Like so, I think about the gods and things like that. Like what keeps me from ascending? Well, that's not going to help me get there, and recognizing things like that. But that can take some time. But I'd say sit down and come up with a list of things that are productive that maybe you're not doing to fill your time with. Like, dude, I tell you what, when I wake up, from the minute I wake up to the time I get home and I'm chilling with my wife, I have every minute filled, like completely. I don't have time to fucking screw off and get involved with shit like that. My bad. No, we're good. I can just keep hitting your foot, dude. I move around a lot, so I don't have time to sit down and like get on my computer and screw off for 45 minutes or an hour or whatever and watch porn. Like there's zero placement for a distraction like that, because I think to myself, okay, what's going to help me be better? What's going to help me be the most honorable, the best man I can be for not only myself, but my wife, my daughter, and those around me. And then sit there and think about that. Write a list. Start reading. Like, I never used to be a big reader, but I knew it would help me grow. So I started reading a lot.
Secret hack nowadays. Nobody fucking reads.
Oh, yeah.
You read. It's secret hack to do good.
Oh, without a doubt, man. And, I've started doing things like at my HQ, like when the sun starts coming up, because I'm there before then. I do the light therapy, and I walk around the building a few times just to get some steps in the morning. You fill your time with just productive tasks, even journaling, man. Like, I got a book I'm writing in. This is massive journal my mom got me, and I write down thoughts. I write down dark thoughts. I write down some pretty dark shit, some very positive shit. I write down stories, just a compilation of things in my life. Whatever's on my mind that morning, I start writing that down. And I think if you can fill your time up with things that are actually worthwhile, then you'll realize, like, oh, dude, I haven't even thought about watching porn today. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So that's, to me, is, fuel your life with purpose. Fill it up with purpose.
You said something I want to touch on. You talked about your wife. You talked about your daughter. Obviously, you're pro family. Obviously, you're pro golden times. You know. Were you always that way? Like with women, when you were dating, were you always? Did you look at women as an object, and then has your growth changed? I guess what I'm trying to say for men to understand, like, the journey this takes. Like, you just don't wake up one day and say, my purpose is suddenly blah, and you go do it. That there's like an actual uncovering to go to it.
Well, I think there's, when you're going down a wrong path or whatever, you can feel it. It's like when I used to be addicted to pills, like, I knew it was bad, but I just kept doing it. I knew it was wrong for me. I knew it wasn't going to get anywhere, but I kept doing it. And then moving forward, obviously I had that moment, and I said, fuck that. And I went and joined the military. Right. And, so that feeling. And
what was that moment? You looked in the mirror and said what?
When I looked in the mirror and I looked at myself, I looked sloppy as shit, man. I'd been snorting all these pills and just every day scrounging for change to get pills. And I said, I fucking hate you. And I just remember walking away, and I swear as if that person was stayed there in the mirror, just standing there. And I went and enlisted. So, and that was, but to me, we've talked about this before, that was the biggest form of self-love I could ever done for myself. That was a huge
I agree. I remember you telling me I hated myself was a key moment. And like meaning it, not meaning it in some pitiful way, like, you hate me, but like being like, no, I honestly would rather kill myself than live this kind of life because it's killing me. It's not killing anybody else. Like I kind of thought,
Exactly.
It harms other people, but it doesn't kill anyone.
Self-hate can also be the biggest form of self-love.
I agree with you.
Given it's geared in the right direction, right? You're going towards a positive light. But growing up, I've always been a romantic. I think that's always been a part of me. I've always wanted a family. That's been my biggest dream, and I have that. So my greatest dream's accomplished. That's really freaking cool. And it's something even when shit gets tough, I think about that. I'm like, dude, I've made it. And that's a reflection thing. But there's been times in my life where like women have rubbed me wrong, and I'm like, man, fuck women. After my last relationship, I got a little reckless. I was like, just hit somebody up, come on over. And I think for a little bit, and in certain periods of my life, I did look him as that kind of object. I was like, man, I'm just trying to hook up with somebody. I'm not trying to have a girlfriend. But then
it's an easy out for you.
But same thing as the drugs, right?
Right.
Like I knew it wasn't right. Like I could feel it. Like it's within us, like genetically.
It's very unfulfilling.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it starts to feel like this kind of like hole inside of you. Mm-hmm. You're like, man, I feel kind of empty from this. It's the same thing as the drug addiction, man. It kind of sucked the life out of me. And, you got to put a stop on that. So I think, back to the question. Yeah, I mean, I think I did, but there was always something in me that told me that that's not how it had to be. And so, and eventually, I met the right woman, and here we are, and we're got a family and everything, and I'm pro all that. But I think sometimes you got to work through those dark phases in life to recognize that even more. I'm not saying like just go through life and try to be like perfect, because you're going to fall hard if you do. But experience just grants you more knowledge, and it teaches you lessons, and you're able to take something from that. And if you have to go through a dark period or force yourself in a bad position for a little bit of time in order to learn, then I'm all for that.
Agreed.
So
I think if you look at your example, if you really want to attract a partner, someone who's going to be there, you have to drastically make changes and do what you did. Look in the mirror and say, hey, am I the quality of person that I would want on the other side?
Yep.
And if that's not matching, you're not even close. The story I mentioned that happened during COVID, we were talking about cell phones and getting a flip phone. I first started dating my now girlfriend at the beginning of COVID, and I was not really interested in my phone. I was getting paid not to work. I'd put my phone away. I'd go to the gym, work out with Jeff under the radar. That I was technically an employee, so we'll
Yeah,
ignore
you were
that.
1099. You got paid, dog.
But I'd work out with Jeff. I'd go for a run. I'd go home. I'd read. I'd cook. I'd clean. Do some sort of project around the house. Maybe talk to a couple friends. That was my day. And on the other side of this, starting to date her, sending back text messages, I kept getting, hey, why aren't you responding? Like, what's going on? I know something's going on. And what I started to realize, and this was 3, 4, 5 months later, was every other guy in the world was addicted to their phone, sitting around doing stupid shit all day, was there at every girl's beck and call because they were so desperate for attention. So my guess is they're watching porn, they're making bad choices. This is like the average guy that's out there right now. So odds are, if you're listening to this, you probably have a lot of these tendencies that you haven't broken yet. That's where I see the difference, who I am now versus who I was 10, 15 years ago. I didn't realize that drastically until you have a female look at you. Like, if you have close female friends, tell them, look at you. What do you see in me versus those guys you're attracted to? What's the difference? You'll find out real quick what's going on with you and what you're trying to hide that you need to address.
Oh man, like you can unpack so much from that, because I agree that I do think a lot of men are like that, because I heard that from when I was dating. They're like, wow, you don't really text me back. And I was like, yeah, I have shit I gotta do. I'd be like, a couple hours go by, and I'd be like, man, what the fuck is going? And I was hearing like, oh, girls would tell me like, yeah, if I didn't respond to a guy like within 5 minutes of text, I'd get another, what's going on? What? Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck do these people do?
She thought I was running around with other girls. I was like, when? If this was at the beginning of the relationship and I was here with you guys shooting this, she would be worried, because that's how other guys behave. They're on to the next thing immediately. They never invest time, effort, heart.
Well, you don't have to invest time or effort when you can just watch something and get a nut quick. Once Joe said you go through your 1 hour to find what you want, but then you
just nailed it. It's all instant gratification.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
But then they go on an app, and it's, if one girl is in DTF or whatever, they move on to the next.
Yeah.
Like, it was shocking how many girls on Single were like, wow, you actually came to a coffee. I'm like, huh? I'm like, well, no offense, I don't want you to know where the fuck I live. What if you're what if you're crazy as stalker? I've seen some Snapped episodes on Oxygen. I have. Like, fuck me, man. The crime show and shit. I just think it comes down to men, just most of them, man, like, don't want to do the fucking hard work. And I'm tired of men being coddled about it and shit like that. Like, I don't want to do this because blah, 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 my mommy, my daddy, and so forth. Like, oh, so fucking what? That happened back then. Sometimes you got to make some fucking peace with it. And it's coming from a guy who wrote a whole book about his trauma and shit. I'm here to tell you, like, me writing the book, all it did was just make me go, yeah, that was pretty fucked up. All right, well, I have some peace now. Like, at least it's an organized piece of shit for me, for me to look at. And I think men would rather just be easily distracted. And, I'll be honest, because I talked about this in your podcast. I'm not a person that like really goes about living every day like, man, I really like life. I heard a lot. It's kind of been more trudgingly long to me than I feel, and just so forth. But I look at it like this: on the off chance that I can't come back and there's no reincarnation or anything cool, I might as well just take my one chance here and live as long as I want to and do what I want to do, which just comes back to being a free man. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand why men avoid being a free man. They're just whipped in by what other men tell them to do, society tells them to do, women, their job, everything. Like, no one does anything that's fucking purposeful at all anymore. And men are actually just shoving themselves down by not wanting to fucking engage in it.
Which is so weird, because like we got this, no matter what you believe in, you got one experience in this flesh here.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Why not
it.
maximize the fuck out of it? I always hated it in past relationships. They're like, do that another time. Like, just wait. You can do that down the road. And I'm like, no, I can't. Like, the time is now, dude. I don't know if I'll make it to retirement. I could die, and I've almost experienced that. So it's real to me. And that's the whole thing. I think they're willing to just like stay there and get comfortable and distracted. And I could tie this into a lot of things. And it's not to knock sports, but I think a lot of people use sports as that kind of distraction as well. I think it can be almost pornographic to some men.
Yeah, I don't understand like the sports betting, the fantasy football, all this shit in between. Like, I love football. I love my Vols. I will tune out for 3 hours for a Vols game, but that's like 10 games, 12 games out of the year.
But following all the stats of other dudes.
No, I don't know any of that stuff.
There's a personal thing. I'm like, yeah, you're so focused on how great these guys are.
Yeah, they're not
when
even
you could be
focused on how
achieving
fucking
greatness
great they are
yourself.
themselves.
There's a saying, man, create your own hero.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't want to idolize anybody.
Oh,
I want
yeah.
to create my own hero. Yeah.
I'd be your own hero tattooed on me. Yeah.
I had a Roman history professor in college who once taught us, he said, you can tell the society values by where they put the biggest buildings. Our biggest buildings are entertainment focused. That's it. So our value is all entertainment. That's all we put any sort of weight into anymore.
Bread and circuses. I don't know if y'all have heard that quote, but give them bread and circuses and you'll never revolt.
Oh God, where'd that come from?
I know. I forget the name. I just
Talking about
I
it.
know. I couldn't do it. Oh man, I don't know. This is one of those where I knew when we begin this conversation, it would actually kind of like weed itself down into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what it kind of comes back to is all of us sitting here and collectively saying as three men that men are always looking for distraction. Porn is one of it, and it's having some damning repercussions all throughout it. Like Robo said, the erectile dysfunction, this and that. Now, if you're a man and you're listening to this and you did have and your partner had left you for a porn addiction, I want to ask you guys, hypothetically, what would be your responses? Let's say you had a porn addiction and someone left you and you knew that's exactly why you left it. What would be your path action out? And that's why I want to ask you, because I want people to hear two vast different ways that two people would work out. Say it happened like, Joe, I caught you beating off to that gangbang porn that you watched and I'm out. I'm over. Sorry, I'm just trying to be a female right now, but voice isn't doing it. Oh, stop.
listen, woman. No, shit. No. Honestly, dude, I if I really think about it, I'd be speechless and ashamed, and I'd be embarrassed. I wouldn't have anything to say. I'd be like, "What the fuck, Joe?" I feel there's nothing other than that, because, like, if you think about it, to get left by your wife or your woman for the fact that you're just like hooked on like cucking, that's a pretty shameful thing. I mean, I wouldn't be able to, like, it'd be hard for me to live with myself there for a little bit.
I like how you're entrenched on that value with that. And I think that's important that some people feel like that, because I do too. I think I'd have similar shame to that. And, you're already living in a world where they kind of, you're born into shame already and guilt by original sin and stuff like that, which, is a whole nother conversation. But Robo, what about you? Because I want to give with what mine would be.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I don't know what I would do. I'd be ashamed, much like Joe would. I'd probably beg them not to tell anyone. I'd be that ashamed and say, hey, don't tell anyone. I promise I'll work on it. And then I'd pretend that I'm going to solve the problem myself and try and, iron fist it. I don't know. I'm glad I haven't been in that situation, but for everyone who has, hopefully they're better at coming up with ideas than I am.
Yeah, and this is something like I sit here and I'm like the third man to say I'd feel ashamed.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to sit here and say that, I'm going to go ahead and say the law of averages that most men, if they were faced this reality, would be very ashamed, feel that way.
After you get off watching porn, what do you feel? Ashamed, right? That's your first feeling.
The normal,
you feel disgusting.
Like once you do it, it's one of those like, oh, all right, you know what I mean? And there's nothing grand that ever comes out of jacking off to porn. Differently, I think what would bother me is, I'll just speak lay because we're just bros here hanging out. But if I was getting pussy at home and it was laying in my bed and I was picking to jerk off to the internet and it ruined my pussy at home that I could get anytime, I feel like I would definitely view myself like a loser.
Yeah.
And that would be like a wake up call to me, like to a degree, like I actually chose something that's not real, a non-real life experience over a real person who genuinely loved me, who genuinely tried to help me, who genuinely tried to sacrifice themselves and live their life with me over this one habit. And I say that because I've lived with guilt over my bodybuilding. I pick that over any woman, and they will all tell you that. And I have my shame I have over that. Mm-hmm. So I carry that. And I know if I carry that, I sure as fucking shit the other dude too.
Dude. Do you guys think that the addiction, I mean, you're truly addicted in that moment if you're choosing it over relationships.
100%.
Do you think that it would actually snap you out, or does it just feed the addiction because now you're alone all the time?
I think it would snap me out, man, because anytime, and that's the whole thing. I agree with what Joe says. I think we inherently know, like, fuck, that was a line that was crossed. Like, there's been time, like, I knew instantaneously when I jumped off my skateboard, like, this ends bad. Like, it was a split second. And I knew it. Probably like you with the motorcycle, right? Yep. You knew when the car was hitting you, this ends bad. Yep. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
And that's kind of how I look at it. I feel like for most men, they do it. And here's the thing. They then go, and this is something I believe in. I think the biggest barrier to most men growing is their own self-talk. Like, they won't have that I fucking hate you conversation. I need to get better because I hate myself. I hate that I keep putting other people in pain. That was my thing. That bothered me a lot. They don't have these raw fucking conversations with themselves. And they just pussyfoot back out the door and be like, fuck it. Well, she left. It's cool. Because you're taught that, fuck that person. You'll find someone better, someone who accepts you, someone who will be okay with you jerking off to anal gangbangs and everything else in between. That's what that message is out there. Fuck everybody. You'll find someone who likes you.
I wouldn't want a woman that's okay with that. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, at what point I would want a woman to be like, hey, fuck you. Like, that's not going down. That's like, sick. I would respect the shit out of a person for doing that. I tell my wife all the time, like, you can check me. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's good. That's a good thing to have in a relationship.
Well, I'll go ahead.
I got a twist on that for you guys. What would you do if you're with a female who is addicted and it made her not want to really do anything with you if she was addicted to porn?
Oh, wow. First of all, I feel very demasculinized, I think, just because that would be a natural thing. Yeah. And I would be very perplexed by why it would be that way. I think it would confuse me more than anything. I don't know if I think the first thing would be like, do we go to counseling for that? Like, just
I bet
no
the
bullshit.
women feel the same way.
Right? 100%.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I agree. Like, I couldn't imagine, like, if, like, these girls who told me, I was like, oh, that must have, like, made you feel about this fucking big. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ.
I think it all comes down to, like, you talked earlier about, like, the hard work. Like, overcoming these things, whether it's your wife that's addicted or you, takes hard work, right? And I think if you marry someone, you're like, that's my best friend, then fucking be honest. You're honest with your best friends, or tell your homies about your shit. So why would you not talk to your wife about it? Say maybe she's got some issues that, like, you know, she had babies or something like that, and, like, y'all aren't as intimate as before, right? Like, okay, guess what? All these things can be worked on. You can talk to somebody about it. It's that simple, and it's a simple fix. Yeah, it takes work, but it's not like you're climbing Mount Everest. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can just go talk to somebody and then figure out steps in order to improve both sides of things.
There's a book I read called Happy Together, and it's a book about couples. And it was talking about you have to make a choice every day you see your couple. Like, I love this person. They're great for me. You naturally have to do it because as your interactions with your partner go on, there's going to be little slights that happen in the kitchen and the laundry room. The daily activities take their toll. And you have to remind yourself, guys, because we're naturally, as a human evolution thing, trained to kind of see the negatives and everything and really focus down on that. And it was really interesting because when I read that book, it changed how I looked at my relationships because it allowed me to look at my partners and go, I still love them. I know that was a little brush up, but that's making me better. They're part of my team. And I think people, like, both sexes, actually, I mean, this would be a great podcast to have some women who'd want to talk to us about it. But I think both sexes now are almost entrenched in war against each other. And the political divide of red and blue has really fucking enhanced that, like 100-fold. The vax in 2020, which you're going to have to edit that word, Logan, the V word, and everything else really caused lots of disillusion, or dissolving, should I say, of, you know, it really put a line between us. I think a lot of it was politically driven.
Yeah. I mean, that makes plenty of sense to me.
It's only getting worse, too.
It is.
It is.
Yeah. It is. More women, they're saying, could be single. I have 2 boys that, you know, I'm like, how do I raise you? And God bless you. I can only understand with your little girl.
You know, obviously, like I want to protect her always. You know, like I worry and I think about things, and you know, it's my baby girl, man.
Yeah, no
like,
way, man. You bare knuckle fighter, and she can beat that ass in the arms.
Well, the thing is too, is like that's actually a good thing. Is like, you know, I have a daughter, and I'm always going to be doing those kinds of things that I do. Right. So also be that example, be that man that. Dudes are they're gonna look you up, and they're like, dude, I don't know if I want to mess with that girl. Like that dad's scary. Like no shit. Like hold yourself to a certain standard that like makes people think twice. Then they're gonna like look and do some research and be like, dude, that dad is fucking scary or something. You know, like
Joe's using social media to his favor now.
Yeah,
like his daughter.
But just pay.
My head's tattooed.
I don't know. Like I feel like people judge, right? Like
no, 100%. They see me, they see you, they think.
Yeah, if I'm out
as criminals.
If I'm out in a public crowd and someone's like, I want to go like snatch up a little girl, and they see all these families there, I want to be the guy. They look over there like, well, I'm definitely not messing with his family. Like he's going to jack me up, and I think it's important to hold yourself to a standard, or even, it's not exactly how you look, but how you hold yourself, right? I think that's a big thing, but be strong and confident, all those things, but also. Because you want her to embody those things as well. Yeah, I don't want to have like a masculine daughter. I want to teach her traditional ways and like understand the value behind all that, the things I believe in. But also like, you know, when she gets old enough, I'm going to train jujitsu with her and my wife. I'm going to teach her those kinds of things. I'm also going to constantly, I talk to my wife about this all the time. I'm like, you're number one, always. Because if I don't always keep you because if I put her above you, like we're the foundation that started this family. So if I don't prioritize you, then it all crumbles down.
Yeah, because the kids eventually leave one day.
Exactly.
And you see a lot of generation of parents that the moms focused a lot on us kids, and then they were left with nothing and looked up one day and go, well, fuck, I didn't get to do my life because of you.
Yes, and my daughter's always going to see how much I love her mother, how I always get the door for her for the rest of her life. Every single thing, she's going to see that, and she's going to have extremely high standards. People are like, aren't you worried about her dating one day? I'm like, no, dude, because she's not going to pick some bum. Straight up, man. I'm so intentional about it, dude. Like I'm very fortunate to have had my first at 33 years old because like I know who I am and I know what I stand for. I may not have this huge successful business and money pouring in, but you know what? I know what I stand for as a man and what I believe in, and I'm very intentional about how I raise my daughter. So like I'm not really sweating it. She's gonna be a strong woman.
You're about 33, right after 32, going in 33 is when it finally clicked for me.
Yeah,
I started kind of be like, okay, you know what? Fuck what everyone thinks. I'm gonna go all in on this.
Yep, exactly.
And I didn't look back.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to ask to kind of close this, wrap this up? Like it could be the deepest. Like it could go anywhere now.
The one thing that came to my head, and I don't know why, while you were talking about your daughter, was if you want to filter out the guys, ask to see their browser history. Like if you're really wanting to find out whether or not this guy is a quality person, you pull up that browser history and you learn everything you need to know. Yeah. Yeah. I gotta imagine that, you know, that dictates most of our personalities, what we look at, what we consume. It's the same thing with social media. If you look and he's following all girls who show, you know, their bodies constantly, obviously he's looking for some sort of instant gratification.
Yeah.
There's ways that we're doing things that we don't even realize. Yeah. And I think it was around the same age, 31, 32, where I was like, why am I following these people? Why am I even paying attention to them anymore? I mean, there's friends of my girlfriend where I'm like, I can't look at this crap. I have to mute them and pretend. Yeah. Because it's so toxic, and that's the crap that I feel like we miss out on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt, man.
Yeah, I think for I'd be curious to get like Logan's thoughts on this, but the best thing I did was come off social media.
Yeah.
And I have someone post for me. The other day I forgot what Boise, Idaho looked like, so I actually got on Google and like looked at some pictures and was like, oh, this is nice. Okay, I'm still back in Nashville. Fuck it. All right, go back to work. Where before on Instagram, I always felt like it was a little bit of with my with people, like I wasn't doing enough. It was almost like I was in productivity wars with people that weren't really in productivity wars with me. But it kind of kept me paralyzed and shit. But Logan, I wanted to ask, did you have anything to close up before that you wanted to ask?
I'm going to steal your mic real quick.
What's your porn history
Not
look like?
Yeah,
I do want to throw something in too.
No, go ahead.
No, go for it.
After he goes.
I was just gonna say that there's something that I brought up before whenever we talked about this, and it was a video that I saw where a guy essentially said it was a guy in the military, and he said that he went up to one of his best friends actually, but he was like a complete like man whore, just real bad kind of guy, and he had a daughter, and the reason why I went up to him is he's like, I want to know from you, how do I protect my daughter from men like you? And the dude's answer was, tell her you love her every day, or somebody else will, and she'll believe him.
Oh, shit. God. Oh.
And I thought that was pretty fucking. Every time he talks about some of that stuff, it always makes me think about that guy that said that, because I think that's basically a lot of the stuff you're talking about. It's like
I hold Oz every day, and I tell her how proud I am of her, how beautiful she is, how amazing she's going to be. I'm like, you're going to accomplish great things.
So
I
from a
repeat this
person
to her.
without a kid, I would second
Yeah,
everything
it's like a
that he
ritual.
says there. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, man, that's a good one to end on too. And I felt moved to tell people, like, one thing you can do, man, and I think a lot of people struggle with, is self-reflection and actually sitting down. Like, I mean, it's talked about, like, people, Jordan Peterson maybe talked about how people can't sit but however long by themselves in the quiet, right? So I'm big on that. And, I meditate, I do prayer, all that stuff. But every Sunday I do my ritual I've talked about, and I really go in on myself. I sit at my altar, I do some chants and whatnot, and then I go inward, and I'm like, what can I eliminate from myself this week? What is holding me back? What is making me not my best? And I really think about those things. And it could even be traits like overthinking, or like whatever. You could say anxiety, or, even porn, if you're like hooked on porn, and sit there and think about those things. And then I'm big on symbolism. So symbolically get rid of those. Me personally, because of my beliefs and stuff, like, I use blood. Now, I'm not saying this for everybody, but I got this ritual blade, and I just do a couple cuts on my arm. Nothing crazy. But to me,
Start getting really intense. Where the fuck are we going?
No, but
Woo.
my symbolism behind that out is blood is such a powerful thing. It goes back to my very first ancestor, which is such a fascinating thing to me, and that carries so much. And so to me, I'm like, I need to bleed these things out. So I just like do that, and I put it on my altar or whatever. But
read about that
so symbolically, I'm bleeding out these negative parts of myself. That's my sacrifice, and then I move forward from that. But, there's people that maybe write these things down on a piece of paper, and they burn it, and they get rid of it. And symbolism, I truly believe, is a huge thing. And if you can just but being proactive towards getting rid of those thoughts and those ideas that you're stuck with, or that's holding you back, I think that could be a really powerful thing and helping you move forward. So,
Yeah.
That'd be a good time.
I was just gonna wrap it. How long we got? We got a minute. Oh, sweet. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys joining us, and Joe, thank you for so much. And the reason I'm bringing on all these different guests is to have a little bit of controversy in here, to bring people from different backgrounds, to see what different men are talking about. Yeah, my friend Danny last week. We've had Jason. We've had myself. We've now had Joe. I'm sure we'll have Robo and others. But this is a time with this series to really look inward and ask yourself why you're not doing the work you need to do. And maybe you don't relate always to Joe's way, or always to my way, or always to Robo or any other man. But it doesn't mean you can't find a relatable way to yourself and get fucking better. And that's all we want for you all out there. So hopefully you guys take all these thoughts, all these views, simmer on them, and most importantly, get better. Appreciate you guys joining us this week. Thanks.